Of course, it's not just the world of politics dealing with sexual misconduct allegations. CBC News has been investigating sexual harassment in the airline industry for a while. 4 years ago, CBC revealed Air Canada had privately warned its pilots to leave the pornography at home away from the flight deck. Well, that story prompted a female pilot to come forward and say the problem of sexual harassment at the airline extended far beyond illicit material.
There are a minority of individual male pilots that perhaps are leaving that material to send a message to the women that they're not welcome.
She wasn't prepared then to publicly reveal her identity. Now she is, speaking exclusively to Diana Swain ahead of a Canadian Human Rights Tribunal hearing tomorrow into her complaint of sexism.
Nearly 30 years ago, Jane Clegg was one of only 2 women in her class to get her Royal Air Force wings, quickly assigned to Ottawa, flying the Prime Minister, foreign heads of state, even the royal family. She later became chief of the Canadian Forces Flight Training School in Moose Jaw, developed safety protocols for Transport Canada, but longed to do this: fly a commercial airliner.
The first day that I put on my airline uniform and took the controls of the 737 was also an extraordinarily proud day for me.
And she'd been doing it for 10 years, she says, ignoring the porn and the crude jokes as the price of being a female pilot, when she got into an angry disagreement with a male captain over whether they needed extra fuel before taking off. She believes his response was really about gender, and ultimately she was reassigned to a different flight. For her, that's when the issue of sexism crossed the line into safety.
The misogynistic behavior, in my opinion, was starting to impact on the safety of flight.
She says pilots who don't trust each other are a safety issue at 30,000 feet.
There is no workplace in the world that can have less tolerance for distraction than being a commercial airline pilot.
But she didn't file a formal complaint, believing the airline could simply agree not to schedule them together. Air Canada says without a complaint, it viewed the problem as a personality conflict, not one of harassment. And that's why it says it told her to use the company's book-around system if she didn't want to work with them anymore. It meant the onus was on her to switch her flights, sometimes to lesser routes, for less pay.
I know there are female pilots at Air Canada who are altering their own personal work schedules to avoid having to share the small confines of an aircraft flight deck with somebody who's treating them inappropriately.
Air Canada says it has a zero-tolerance policy for harassment and wouldn't have suggested she work around the male pilot if they'd known she considered their conflict about gender. Clegg claims the situation became untenable and she quit, and will argue in front of a public tribunal tomorrow that Air Canada hasn't done enough to address sexism within its pilot ranks. Still, she wants her job back.
I don't think Air Canada is unsafe. I don't think Air Canada wanted me to feel I had no other choice than to leave, but I don't think they truly appreciate the impact that misogyny has on their female pilots.
Air Canada employs more than 3,500 pilots, barely 200 of which, or 6%, are female. It says that's better than the industry average. Diana Swain, CBC News, Toronto.